Okay, it's just about time for our 11th session of the day, and that is Intro to Python and API, Finding LC Class Data with ISBN for Collections. This is presented by Selena Chau from the University of California, Santa Barbara. At UC Santa Barbara, Selena selects and assesses humanities and social sciences resources for the general collections, and she currently serves on the planning committee of the Acquisitions Institute at Timberline Lodge. After a career in dance, performing in operas, musicals, and concert dance works, Selena received her Master of Library and Information Sciences degree with further training in digital preservation and has worked in museum, research library, and broadcast environments. Selena has experience in dance and music, research libraries and archives, has been a member of the Society of American Archivists, and a board member for the Theater Library Association. All right, Selena, feel free to take it away.
And can you hear me okay?
Sound good to me.
All right. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be part of this winter meeting. My presentation is Finding LC Class Data with ISBN, and I called it an Intro to Python and API, but we're going to demo some things, and it's a short session, so everything that's recorded, the slides, and the learning resource environment that I'm sharing can be revisited to review at your own speed if you wish. I do want to share this link here if the host can help put that first link in the chat. I haven't done a Mentimeter poll, so I'm kind of excited. So please indulge me if you'd like to take that poll, just so I know what we were all thinking about these topics today. And then if somebody can remind me, maybe we can revisit the results later in the presentation. So a little bit of background. This is an application that is from my perspective as a collection strategist librarian. At UC Santa Barbara, this is a new centralized department so that there are fewer selectors looking over the general collections. I look at the humanities and social sciences topics, so it's multiple departments and subject areas. In recent years, we moved to an E-preferred collection development policy and practices. And we're familiar with counter data analysis. So we wanted to share information, but we are still exploring ways to do this. We need to identify and define roles and responsibilities. So how advanced is this session? You can tell me, I think it's a matter of knowing that learning is progressive. So some of you may be familiar with these terms, and you can use some concept here to either start something in your learning process or learn more. I'll let you know that this doesn't require you to install anything or know anything. And I've written it in a way that I hope that you find useful to start on your own. So I'll talk about some core concepts, and you can choose to learn more if you wish. I use these tools, Python, API, because they're free, and then they only require time and some motivation and efforts to learn more. And in a nutshell, why are we doing this? So my motivating example for this session is that, as I mentioned, we have an idea of knowing that counter usage data will help in our assessment of resources. But if you've looked at this report, usually the only consistent term is the ISBN if you're looking at books. So since I look over several categories or topics and departments, I wanted to be able to extend that analysis to subjects. So I can say, oh, for history, usage is this, or literature or something like that. And more importantly, the way I structure this session is to share these tools in a way that allows you to know what's possible. So it's not just about what I do in my job, but maybe you see an application that you can use, even though you might not do it in your own work. I, for myself, this is a personal exploration. Like, we haven't implemented this yet, right? But it's useful to grow the knowledge so that we can help our institutional workflows. And then the environment that I'm using, it's also low barrier. I find sometimes that installing Python is the the tricky part and can take a lot of time. So by cutting that part out, we're going to get right into it. So this mini roadmap is what we'll do today. I'm going to briefly introduce some of these tools. We'll do a demo, which is abbreviated. And again, you can return to it if you wish, and then just wrap up a little bit. So I wrote a script using an API. It's written in Python. You're going to see this in our demo in a Jupyter notebook. And then the Jupyter notebook is hosted on Binder. So these are all free things you could get into. And I hope that pulls these three concepts together. We saw Jupyter notebook in another session today, but basically it's a document with a standard format that allows you to write some instruction and also show code in a block that allows people to interact with it separately. Binder is an environment which is preloaded, so you can just load the environment and not have to do anything on your own personal computer. And in a nutshell, again, this is how I wrote my script. So it allows you, if you engage with the learning resource, to upload your own CSV of like one column ISBNs. It can be hundreds of ISBNs long. We're going to pass it through a Python library called ISBN-lib. Then it's going to use that information for an API that will pull the LC class and write the LC class next to the ISBNs that you're interested in pulling the information for. And so at this point, I'm going to do a preparation step. So you don't have to do this, but I'm just going to show you what it is in case it's helpful. We're going to put this location, URL of GitHub is where all my prepared files are, into this prompt here and launch the environment. And the reason why I'm doing this now is because it's a free resource. It can take some time to load. So we'll check on it again a little bit later, and we'll come back to this point. But to back up, I'm going to now introduce some of these tools, the Python, Jupyter Notebook, and Binder, for those of you who are less aware. So once again, this is how they all three interact. I'm writing a script in the Python programming language. It could be a different programming language. It's just something that is useful to me and what I'm more familiar with. I chose to present it in Jupyter Notebook because I think it's useful for sharing and learning. And again, Binder, so that it's low barrier, you can just get started. The Python ISBN library. Python has many libraries. And if you go to this link, hopefully I'm sharing correctly, every Python library has a documentation page. So if you get more familiar with it, you'll read some of these and they become more familiar. It tells you exactly what it does and how to use it. So it's, again, all open information. All it takes is your time to read all that. Some important terms for the ISBN-lib Python library. ISBN-like, it's what this library calls the ISBN string with the dashes in it. And then canonical simply means the string without the dashes. So all the valid digits and X's. And this is a fun one for librarians to get into, or library staff, because it deals all about library metadata. And of course, we're library staff. So in different job functions, maybe you already have solutions to find this information in different ways. But this is another tool in case you want to learn about Python programming language. The reason why we're using canonical is because the next step, OCLC classify API, is going to look for that form of the ISBN for my application of it. Okay, so back to the ISBN-lib Python library. The library is kind of predefined, right? It has all these functions. And so in this table, I have functions. They are identified in Python with these parentheses. So is_ISBN 13 is a function. What goes in the parentheses is an input value and any optional parameters. So since we're talking about ISBN-lib, the input value is going to be an ISBN string. Is_ISBN 13. If you put an ISBN string inside, run the function, what the computer will show you is either the word true or false. It'll say, yes, it's an ISBN, or no, it's not. And if you skip down 2 rows to canonical, this is something that's used in a script. The function, you input the ISBN-like string, And then when you run a function, it returns the ISBN in its canonical form. So the power of this programming is it can do a batch task and do a lot of work with very little using computer processing speed. Another fun one that we're not going to do, but it's included in the learning resource for you to learn more if you wish, is the meta function, which is short for metadata. And it again takes an input value of an ISBN. The default optional parameter will use the open information source of Google Books for metadata, but you can change that optional parameter to pull information from Wikipedia or Open Library and more. It's a lot of things in this library. Next, briefly introducing OCLC Classify API. These are all the links you would want to look at, but we don't necessarily need to open all of them. This first link, classify.oclc.org, which tab is that on? No. Yes. Okay. So this is their web interface, and they call it an experimental web service. It's free. And as a reminder, please read the terms and conditions. So we want to make sure that we're using this IP protected service and content appropriately. But instead of using the human readable interface, the graphical user interface, we're going to use the API, which is more machine readable and again can do more programmatic work for us. Here's that slide again, and this is how the API fits into this. So we talked about how ISBN lib is going to create a canonical ISBN because that's what the API is going to accept. And then I say retrieves the most popular LC class. What does that mean? Well, the OCLC content, they've already tagged this. They called this the most popular LC class in their data. That's what they hold in their big databases. And this is because for a given book title, there could be several LC classes that apply and are valid, right? But for this exploratory purpose, most popular is just fine. So what Classify API does is a little bit of web scraping, right? It looks for a tag called, it'll show in the demo later, most popular, grab information, that's what it pulls into the CSV. Okay, demo. This is the tricky part because I want to see if it loads correctly. Okay, hooray. Hopefully you can see this. I don't have my eye on the chat, but here is this whole thing. Left side, right side is binder. I've loaded the files from my GitHub location. On the left, you see file list, right? Similar to what you'd see in your computer. I want to point out some key icons. And if you're following along in the slides, you know, we've seen this preparatory slide. And then here's another one that highlights the things we're seeing live in person right now in our demo. I know I'm flying through this. So again, apologies, and I hope that you return to it and I'm giving you enough information to get you started. This is an upload icon. This is where you can upload files from your own computer into this online space. And then similarly, if you right click on any of these files, you can have a whole menu of other things. You can download files from this location as well. The quick convert is what we're going to walk through together. This is a Jupyter notebook and it opens on the right-hand side. You'll see another list of top menu items alongside here. The important ones I want to point out just to get you oriented are how a Jupyter notebook is formatted. So we have some text, and in Jupyter notebook, Markdown is what they mean by that kind of format of seeing this content. So this blue bar next to the cell means we're in a Markdown cell. We scroll down a little bit more. Here's some code, right? So now when I click into this cell, we see this tag right here. It says code, and it's defining what kind of content we're in. So this is a code cell compared to a Markdown cell. Okay. Instructions. So I said before, this kind of more simplified application is you can upload a list of CSVs in a CSV file. For this script, it's custom and it's going to look for a CSV named specifically ISBNs.csv it should contain only one column of data with no header. And these are just arbitrarily defined so that the script looks for something, and then what it looks for is what you uploaded. So you're gonna use the upload by icon here, and then you can upload from your computer. But I've included this here, this test file ISBNs CSV, to save time. And this is what it looks like, right? So just really short. And then next, run the code block below using the Jupyter Notebook icons. Click anywhere inside the block of code below, then click the play icon above. So we click down here, we know we're in a code cell. We click this play button, and then we'll let it run. If your list of ISBNs is longer, it will take longer. And we will know that the code has finished when a new file named ISBN-LCC.CSV has appeared. So again, to save time, I have a preloaded one, but you'll see here last modified, it said seconds ago, which means this is the output of us running the code here in this notebook. So all I did is overwrite the file over and over again. And there it is, that's the output. So it's a lot of talking about tools to give you this very understandable 2-column CSV. So I hope that makes sense. Again, in this location, right, if you load this Binder environment again, there's a walkthrough IPython notebook, and it kind of lets you play around more with the individual parts that we talked about, like the ISBN lib library. You can click into a code cell and then run the script and see what these functions do. You can even, change these terms, and you can even download the files to your local computer. Okay. Extensions of this script. So there is a turnkey solution. It's right here in this GitHub. And I actually contacted this librarian programmer and just checked it was okay that I could use parts of her code. So GitHub is great to see what other people have done programmatically. I call hers a turnkey solution because it really is from start to finish, exactly what she wants to do with these tools, Python, the API, you name it. But the reason why I didn't introduce this tool, is because it's a little advanced, right? And you'd have to know how to install Python on your computer, know how to maintain it, and it had to fit with your existing library workflows. But her script is really great. It'll show you what you can do with Python. Her script opens a little dialog box. You can upload counter formatted scripts. So it cuts out a whole step completely. My little simple solution is you transform the data, get you want, and you put it back into your data lake or data set that you're going to do your analysis on. But hers, she customized because she's found these tools and apply them to her work. And then to wrap up, resources to learn more, browse on GitHub. So the way I found Melissa's script to learn more is that I went to github.com and I simply searched for these two terms, and you can see what other people have done. And what I did is I just kind of learned from people's examples. I saw different shout outs for carpentries in the chat for other sessions. I want to again give it a shout out, and also do the code for LibJournal, which is a great way to just see what kind of applications there are with technology and library space. And there are many free resources to learn the tools, and here are some links that you can choose, or choose other ones you like. And now is the time for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. Another fantastic one with some really useful information, and then the resources you included as well. So thank you for that. If anyone has any questions, put them in the Q&A, please. I do see one question in there right now. Do you have any LibGuides, procedures for your staff you can share?
I don't. So, okay, so just to go back to that background of where we are, I'm in a new department and we haven't set up the workflows or defined the roles and responsibilities around analytics. So this is a lot of exploratory work. It was on my own time, a personal question, I know there's got to be a better way to do this. My solution, and again, I'm getting some background information, but my solution was just to find the tools that'll give the most complete data, because I did before try VLOOKUP, and use the expenditure report from an approval plan, because there's data there too that's useful, like fund code, sub account, sometimes ISBNs, but not always, especially with ebooks. So when I found the solution, I found it was the most complete data. It doesn't mean that it's going to be the best solution for my work environment, just based on how much time it's going to take, what are the workflows. So, to the question about LibGuides, not yet, but I'm happy to share. Feel free to email me. No question is unwelcome. This is a really welcoming space for me to present. So I want to just welcome your questions, and also just to figure out how I presented the information and how it worked for you. I put the link to the results of the Mentimeter in the chat, if the host could share that, because I also am curious about the results if you took that little Mentimeter survey.
Okay, that will be shared out momentarily. In the meantime, there's another question. What would be your favorite go-to resource for learning Python from scratch? Great presentation, by the way.
Thanks for your question, Craig. I think that it depends on your learning style. So I've done this a little bit in different jobs, just as needed. I'm not a programmer, so to speak. And so every refresh of, programming for me is like, hello world, what does a programming thing do? And I find real examples, like in GitHub, the best, similar to learning like a foreign language, so I'm learning German. So some people like the vocab first. Sometimes you got to find that bilingual book that's at the right level for you to understand, like, okay, I see this code. What does it do? So, it's a lot about using the whole open web to do that. But I do want to, again, shout out to the carpentries. Those are great level for libraries and library staff to be aware of. I don't know what else. I have to say it's just kind of personal, right? So I want to, honor your way of learning and getting to where you need to be.
Thank you. Yeah, someone mentioned in the chat they've bought a few Python classes on Udemy. I personally have taken the Python for Librarians course in Library Juice Academy. I found that useful. So there's more things being posted in the chat of resources for learning Python. I also find, like you, it's one of those things you kind of pick up as needed as you're working on a project. All right, next question. Any handy way to bounce ISBN up against Library of Congress subject headings? I know, but even a rough idea of the first one that shows up in the MARC record.
So I just want to point out that the OCLC Classify API does a lot. There's a lot of information out there. So we can start with that, that human interface, classify.oclc.api.com. Oh, sorry, I forgot. But I just chose to search by ISBN and pull back LCC. You could do search by ISBN, pull Dewey, search by author, pull so-and-so. And I believe they also have, all the information that they have because they're OCLC. I hope that's helpful.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions, but we'll leave the Q&A up for a minute longer. If anyone has anything, feel free to ask away because we have a few more minutes. I'll use this time again to mention that all of today's sessions are being recorded, and all of that will be shared along with any available slide decks after the conference. So it'll be shared to your email that you registered for this conference with. Another question, are there LinkedIn resources for these? I'm assuming you mean as more additional Python resources? Like classes and such. Okay, thank you for that clarification. I don't know, Selena, if you know of any?
Not offhand. Yeah, sorry. I don't know. I think LinkedIn Learning, we have a subscription through our university, but it's not like open. So I don't often go there. I just, I'm scrape or free things off the web. So
Yeah, people are saying,
awesome.
yes, LinkedIn Learning does have Python courses. Coursera definitely does. So there are a lot of resources out there. I think just getting them all together.
Oh, I
Choosing.
should also mention, I actually started this investigation. I found the API when I was taking an R course, and I took that R course through edX because I didn't know R. And then I went back to Python because I'm just a little bit more familiar with that. But yeah, certainly the course structure is very useful.
Okay, people still adding a lot of resources of various types for learning in the chat. So thank you everyone who has added those. Does anyone else have any more questions? Someone asked, are you going to post the poll? It was posted after Selena or during Selena's presentation.
Yeah, sorry, I can only message the host and panelists. I can.
Yeah, we just posted it in the chat again.
Yes. Yeah, thanks, and nice to meet everyone virtually. Feel free to email me about whatever.
What sorts of collections projects do you envision using this with in the future?
Using this with, well, I mean, I want to do everything with and look into everything. I mean, we haven't done a whole, holistic assessment of things, but I would start with ebooks just because in the UC system, we're part of consortium. We get a lot of packages too. So there's different ways. It's a bigger thinking project to me, honestly, besides, put the programming on a shelf, but like thinking a process of like, how am I defining a collection, right? And how am I going to get this data? I think this is helpful to make certain data complete. If you're looking for something missing, just use different data sources in case you can't, pull in your own, in ALMA reports or expenditure reports. So I was trying to look at ebooks in our approval plan, right? And just think about usage, holdings, and how our local plan is compared to packages we get, and the usage and the holdings of those as well. So because I think more and more we're really seeing a good benefit of doing consortial ebook packages. I think it helps to assess and compare across platforms and packages. Again, that's why the benefit of using Counter, and also my use case of like, we'll just add something also consistent across platform and vendors to another thing that's supposed to be constant and consistent across platform vendors.
Okay, thank you. Someone is asking, will the chat also be available later? There are a lot of good resources listed. I agree that there are a lot of good resources listed. So we will, at the very least, do our best to collate those together and organize them and share them when we share the recordings and slides and everything. And let's see, one more question. What would you do with these sort of tools and your catalog data if you also had access to publisher data?
I don't know what you mean by publisher data. I'm sorry, but I'll start by saying I defaulted to this data set because publishers do have their own information, like like JSTOR and Project Moves. They'll just like categorize things, but it's for their own platform only, right? So how do I make sense of a data where it's vendors only categorize some part of that data that we might be wanting to look at en masse? Feel free to clarify that question if you were looking for more information. Publisher data. Does that help? Anybody want to clarify? I think also, I'm not in cataloging or acquisitions, but I have I think catalogers have MarcEdit, which also is also a resource for filling in blanks for data. But this is just programmatically to do LCUs for ISBN.
Okay, I'm not seeing anything else come in, and we're just about at time. So I'd just like to thank you again, Selena, for that presentation. Another really, really great, useful presentation. So thank you for sharing that with us. We really do appreciate it.